Today, we're talking about B2B chat and how to get your anonymous web visitors to start a conversation with you. Let's dive in. Who should leave now? Weird way to start this. This isn't an instant fix solution. You really need to be able to dive deep into chat. And this is primarily for folks that are targeting B2B audiences where the end result is a sales conversation, right? A sales meeting or a salesperson live on the phone, right? Or on the chat. That's really key here. This isn't about a consumer play or how to get people through some bot flow. The goal is to get them from your website to start a conversation with them, with your leads. So why this guy? So I have run a bunch of B2B consulting engagements. I took Zinc from 1 to 100 million in 2 years in GMV. I work for companies like Bouncer and Comstore doing sales and marketing consulting and strategy for them. Other companies like Povio Labs, I helped Lucidworks drastically improve their conversion rates. And I've worked with a bunch of different B2B companies as a sales and marketing early stage consultant. My recent chatbots have had 500% improvement over sort of their default state, right, before I came in and was involved. And on some of my best bots, I got a 9% starting conversation from that segment of traffic to reply. Here's sort of aggregate data if you look at visitors to this site and when I started launching chatbots, so you can see a drastic increase in chat engagement rates. No one has questions for you. No one. Stop asking this. Can you imagine if you started a conversation? Hi, I'm Jordan. Do you have any questions for me? It's a terrible way to start a conversation. So you shouldn't do it on your website. You need to take intent data about who your leads are and match that with a hook, something that will get that particular visitor, whatever you may know about them, to engage with you. Stop asking this question. Have any questions? Stop asking that question. So you want to prioritize with data. I'm going to talk really about intent a lot. Intent. What's the visitor's intent? Who are they? What do you know about them? And there's two really great data sources here. The first is Clearbit. And you should get a Clearbit Reveal subscription to be able to understand who your visitors are. What companies do they come from? What locations do they come from? What types of technology? How many employees? You get a lot of really, really great firmographic and demographic data from Clearbit. The other source is like a Google Analytics, right? So you want to know what URLs are people visiting? How many visitors do you have to those sites? What paid ads are they coming from? Look at your UTM parameters, right? You really want to be able to prioritize your bot plays and your chatbots based on the biggest opportunity there. And that's kind of bucket sizes. And these are two great data sources for that. Intent is key. I'm going to say this over and over and over again. Clayton Christensen talked about the jobs to be done, right? His framework for hiring a milkshake, right? He interviewed a bunch of people that bought milkshakes at McDonald's, and it turns out they were buying for different reasons. Some people were buying as a source of protein to be able to drink a milkshake and skip a meal. Other people were buying it because they were bored. Others were even giving it to their kids, so to shut their kids up. So each of those people was solving a different thing with the milkshake, and you can imagine that even though it's the same product, you might talk about the milkshake differently to each of those different audiences. And it's the same thing with chatbots. You really need to understand who is your visitor, where do they come from, to be able to get them to engage. I spent probably 20 seconds. I just typed in B2B companies I knew off the top of my head. And I don't mean to harp on Apollo here, but I found them first, right? Do you have any questions? The one thing I will say is at least they don't allow me to type. So the key here is you definitely shouldn't allow your visitors to be able to type whatever they want. Just click, right? So we need to kill this notion of any questions and segment. And the whole adage, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. If you can't ask anything but have any questions, don't ask anything at all. Dump the bot. Much better, right? If you figure out that Daniel Day-Lewis has a bunch of oil on his face, then you're going to say, hey, we sell towels, need one? That's a much, much, much better pitch because you know who this person is. You've got context on them and you understand where they're coming from. And it's not going to be always right, but at least you can take a guess here. And more often than not, you're going to be right and people will engage. Let's talk about targeting. Targeting is really, really key. I talked about Clearbit a little bit earlier. Clearbit's really nice, Clearbit Reveal specifically, because you can target the technology use. So all people that come to the site that use Segment, right? Maybe Segment is a customer of yours, and you can say, hey, Jordan, I noticed that you come from company and you use Segment. Did you know they're a customer of ours? That's going to be a much, much better hook than have any questions. You can also see how many different people come from different companies. So you could make a company bot that says, hey, Oracle.com, did you know that SAP uses us, right? Like, talk about competitors. Sometimes what I've even done is targeted the competitors of the company I'm working at and say, oh, you're probably looking for the careers page, right? That only reason a competitor would come there was to search for a job. You can target by employee range. So you might say something different to a company of 1 to 10 people versus a company of 1,000, right? And maybe you actually want to exclude those 1 to 10 folks and never show them a chatbot because you know that they're not going to be able to afford your service. They're not a good fit in the first place. Again, you can look at industry, country. There's a bunch of other things you can do with Clearbit Reveal. This is a great intent signal. It's one of my favorites. URL, right? I just typed in dance and WikiHow is the first result here. And these are actual pictures. I didn't invent this. This is a really important intent signal, though, is that the URL that people are on. So if you have a product that works with SharePoint and you have SharePoint in the URL, then you want to message folks about SharePoint, right? Because you know that the only reason they're there is they're looking for a solution with SharePoint. So that message might be, do you want to see how we helped Reddit with their SharePoint implementation, right? Much better thing. You've got a customer, a reference customer, as well as a pain point that this customer is clearly looking for. So URLs are a good intent signal. The contact us page. This is a great page to put a bot on because you know that people want to get in touch, and most B2B forms suck. You know it. Put your information in, you wait 8 years, you never hear back. It's terrible. So throw a bot there and it says, do you want to get instantly connected with someone that can help you? That's a much, much, much better play. Skip the form, start with the bot. UTM parameters, right? You know that people are clicking from your ads and you know what the ad copy was. You know the audience. If you use something like sayprimer.com, you can even actually target very specific people on Facebook and LinkedIn. So now you're able to say, hey, YC company, here's how we've helped other YC companies. Do you want to chat? Much, much, much better than have any questions. I hate that one. This is really, really cool. So, by the way, I don't know why Rachel gets pictured twice here. That doesn't make sense. That's like she's duplicated. This is her twin or something. But this is really important. Segment, Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, all of these tools integrate with a service like Drift. So if you have a context with this lead, maybe they're already in a deal. Maybe you've chatted with them 6 months ago and you could say something like, hey, Jordan, I know we chatted 6 months ago, but has something changed for you? Like, let us know. And you can bring in all of this really rich data that your sales folks have written in Salesforce or HubSpot, or even if you've sent them a bunch of emails and you could say something like, hey, Jordan, I see that you're more interested recently. I don't know, that's like probably a bad example, but this is a really rich data set that you should think about how you can leverage it. This is the Dry Tortugas National Park. According to Google, it gets the most sun out of any place in the United States. It's off of Florida. So you can use location. You might do things like talk about the weather. You might have reference customers. Jordan, did you know 57 other people in San Francisco, California use our service, right? It's relating with someone. Now, ideally, you want to use intent stronger than this, but there might be location or relevance for your business. So if you're in farming or agriculture, for example, you might say something, hey, did you know that the potato season is expected to last 52 fewer days this year, right? That's an example of how if your product is relevant to location, that the user's location might be relevant to the messaging here. Referral source. So if they come from Product Hunt, for example, maybe you want to offer them a deal, or maybe you want to talk about that, like, hello, fellow product hunter, right? You can greet them in different ways. So you may actually combine intent signals here. Hello, fellow product hunter, and then you know that they're at a large company. Here's how we helped a company of your same size in your same industry, right? You can really dig as deep as you can so long as the audience size is big enough. Time on page, right? You might say, hey, Jordan, it's been 5 minutes. Are you having troubles finding something? Like, would you want to chat with a person instead, right? That's a level of intent, right? They're committing their time to you and to understand you and your product by browsing your site. And your site's probably not going to be as good as having a direct conversation with someone that might be able to help them instantly. I just searched Brad sales because I just figure a lot of salespeople are named Brad. But it's really important for you to watch out for this vanity intent. So there are connections with like Outreach.io. And if you're like most kind of big B2B companies, if your sales reps are doing the writing of messaging, it's probably not as good as like a standardized campaign. And so you can actually do targeting by an outbound email. So if you send an outbound email, match that outbound email with the inbound chat. But it turns out that that's not a great intent signal because you fabricated it, right? You determined this is the person I want to reach out to. And often it's not going to be as good as inbound intent. So it might be a vanity signal, and it's just something that you should watch out for. But you could also do this in your marketing messaging, right? If people are opening your mail and include UTM parameters to target folks based on their intent. Let's talk about messaging. It's the other important piece, right? So you really want to start out with a hook, right? You want to hook people. You got to get them involved. You have to get them to pay attention to the chat. And often chat's a little bit of a commodity, and people kind of expect a bad experience from now. People aren't going to be around, right? So the bar has gotten much higher because people will abandon chat like nobody's business if they don't see a quick reply or if you don't engage them. Starbucks knows this trick really well. Would you like the chocolate croissant or the almond croissant, right? Do you want to add a chocolate or almond croissant to your order today, right? I'm not saying, do you want to add a croissant, yes or no? I'm giving you two positive choices, right? So it's a false choice really, but this is what you want to do in your chatbots. When you start a question, you might say, like, one of my starting phrases was, do you want to see how we helped Reddit, the 6th largest site on the internet, improve their search? And then the options were yes, absolutely. No, I just want to chat with someone now, right? So I give them two options. Both of them are yeses. Buttons are way greater than chat with bots. So, and what I mean by that is you want your user to be able to click, click, click until they can start actually having a conversation with the person. Do not give them the option to type in their own answers. The keyword targeting is just not going to work all that well. Give people buttons they can click, and they're much more likely to complete the flow. So you can see I stole both of these from this great Drift blog post that talks about engaging chat lines. Hey, want to see some cool data? It's different, right? It's specific. It's about a thing. That had 3% reply rate. But when I used intent data to target the oil and gas industry, want to know how we're helping your industry? I just called out their industry, right? I could also say, want to see how we've helped Chevron, right? If Shell comes to the site, they're going to be like, wow, yeah, actually do. That is relevant to me. So now I've targeted because I know something about you. And that is much more engaging than even a really, really good generic hook. We looked at people that came from GitHub. This is a referral source, right? So people that came from a GitHub link, these are developers, right? People that want to get their hands dirty. And so it's like, do you want to see this thing now? Do you want to see it in action? Do you want to play with it? Yeah, absolutely, I do. Okay, so Brad the sales guy, is going to say, like, I'll chat with anyone. This is my sales voice. I'll chat with anyone. Just like, give them to me. I'll get them. Don't listen to Brad. You need to qualify and specifically disqualify folks. So you need to route them accordingly. And this is like 1 or 2 questions. And it's okay to say no, right? You may actually say, oh, actually I have fewer than 100 employees. And you want to think about this question very carefully, but don't be afraid to disqualify someone if they're not right for your product. Chat or schedule. Don't ask for an email. People do not want to provide their emails. They know they're going to get spam. They're very reticent, but scheduling a meeting or chatting live is the way to go. So if you have to get someone's email in the course of scheduling a meeting, right, that's a much higher intent signal. They're willing to both give their email and give their time, but people are going to be much more generous with their time than they are with their email, weirdly enough. So you should always have the call to action be chat live, or if you're offline, and you should be offline sometimes, right? Of course, then you want to say, schedule this thing for later. Great, that's it. You're a chat expert now. Congratulations on spending a bunch of time to learn about how to do B2B chat right. Feel free to email me too. I'm Jordan at sendwithscout.com.